Robin, are you ready? Good morning and welcome to a special meeting of the Utility Commission and staff of the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority held today, Monday, November 18th, 2024 at 10 a.m. On the agenda this morning is the consideration of the final decisions in docket number 23-1102. This morning, we have Attorney Kate Keenan with us to present an overview of the decisions for the panel's consideration, please.
Morning, Chairman Gillette, Vice Chairman Bukowski, and Commissioner Karen. The Public Utilities Regulatory Authority approves an annual revenue requirement for rate-making purposes for Connecticut Natural Gas Corporation, or CNG, in the amount of $417,502,324 for the rate year, December 1st, 2024 through November 30th, 2025. Notably, however, reflected in this amount is the fact that CNG will be returning to ratepayers approximately $24 million of ratepayer money over the next 3 years. Thus, the approved revenue requirement after such credits are extinguished is $423,824,405. CNG may recover an additional $103,703 in executive compensation, providing the company achieves certain performance targets. The revenue requirement includes an allowed return on equity of 9.15%. With respect to the Southern Connecticut Gas Company, or SCG, the authority approves an annual revenue requirement for rate-making purposes in the amount of $425,288,190 for the rate year December 1, 2024 through November 30th, 2025. Notably, however, reflected in this amount is the fact that SCG will be required to return to ratepayers approximately $96 million of ratepayer money over the next 3 years. Thus, the approved revenue requirement after such credits are extinguished is a little over $457 million. SCG may recover an additional $111,187 in executive compensation, provided the company achieves certain performance targets. The revenue requirement includes allowed return on equity of 9.15%. CNG currently has authorized revenues of $442,112,779 and proposed a 4.46% increase for a total revenue requirement of $461,815,765. And SCG currently has authorized revenues of $436 million and proposed a 9.92% increase or $43,238,833 for a total revenue requirement of approximately $479 million. The company's proposals include 10.20% return on equity, which is above CNG's and SCG's currently allowed return on equity of 9.30% and 9.25% respectively. These decisions are constructed on the basis of significant process, including 13 days of hearings, 2 days of late filed exhibit hearings, 3 public comment hearings, and rulings on 119 motions, including the ruling granting the company's request for a 30-day extension so that the companies could pursue a settlement. In addition, the authority issued a proposed final decision and allowed written exceptions thereon and held a 3-hour oral argument, after which the commissioners deliberated. As a result of such deliberation, the authority made changes to the proposed final decisions. The following represents a non-exhaustive list of some of the changes reflected in the final decision. The authority adjusted the vacancy factor and approved 363 employees for CNG and 352.5 employees for SCG, which results in an increase of 45 employees from CNG's test year headcount and 73.5 employees from SCG's test year headcount. The authority approved the increase in employees despite the company's consistent and systemic histories of employing less employees than the amount paid for by ratepayers. In other words, neither company actually employs the number of employees that ratepayers have funded since the last rate cases. The authority also exercises its discretion to allow the companies to include their requested cybersecurity expenses in the rate year. However, the authority will require the companies to annually reconcile in a downward-only adjustment the difference between the company's actual incurred cybersecurity expenses and the amount authorized in rates for the rate year and subsequent yearly periods. The authority emphasizes that this is an exception it is choosing to permit given the importance of cybersecurity, particularly in light of the company's history of spending nominal amounts on cybersecurity. In addition, notwithstanding the absence of evidence, the authority approves the company's request for operating and capital expenses for a mobile command center. Additionally, notwithstanding the company's failure to provide evidence to support the inflation adjustment, the authority will exercise its discretion and permit the companies to inflate certain test year expenses using an inflation adjustment. However, the amount is reduced by $829,835 to account for disallowed costs and the 50% reduction in the corporate service charge inflation expense. Lastly, the authority made several other adjustments to the proposed final decision that it found persuasive or otherwise necessary to reach a just and reasonable result. During oral argument, the companies revealed that they have not kept separate the significant money owed to ratepayers for known overcollections resulting from the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. For CNG, this and other ratepayer credits amount to $24 million, and for SCG amount to $96 million. This is money the companies knew from day one had to be returned to ratepayers, and this decision begins that process. It is important to note that CNG and SCG have not had fully adjudicated rate cases since 2014 and 2009, respectively. Their last rate amendment applications were resolved through settlement agreements. Under the terms of those settlement agreements, both companies have continued to earn healthy returns, including several periods of sustained over-earning. As a result, in 2023, the authority directed the companies to file a rate amendment application or be subject to a final audit. That order precipitated this proceeding. In this context, a reduction to the company's revenue requirement for rate-making purposes is not unexpected and was in fact advocated for by the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of Consumer Counsel. Importantly, the authority is bound by certain legal standards and is limited to the factual record before it. For each expense, the authority must find a preponderance of evidence that the expense will be incurred and that it is reasonable. Here, although the companies claim they are entitled to a higher revenue requirement, the company's management did not offer sufficient evidence to support such a higher number. Staff recommends these decisions for the panel's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Keenan. Is there a motion?
Move adoption.
I will second. Are there any comments before we vote?
Madam Chair, may I?
Commissioner Karen.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, I find I will not be able to support today's final decision. It has been said there's never a good time to have a baby. Similarly, there is never a good time for a rate increase. I'm very mindful of the pressures and difficulties that Connecticut families and businesses have had to deal with over the past 4 years. My responsibility at the authority is to assess applications that come before me dispassionately, objectively, and with an eye toward the future, as well as to the past, for assets that the companies can recover for past prudently incurred investments and what they need to provide safe and reliable gas services for their customers that they serve. Neither of these companies have sought a rate increase in 6 and 7 years respectively, meaning obviously that there's been no rate increases in that time. The companies are also dealing with inflation rates that the nation hasn't seen in 40 years, and to then deduce that current or lower rates can somehow sustain the operations and investment necessary for a safe and reliable system is hopeful at best. There are places where we can lay the blame for recent cost spikes across the economy over the past 4 years and the resulting supply chain disruptions that have affected every economy across the world. But it is not at the feet of our local utilities that have an obligation to provide a safe and reliable gas system. To continue to invest in a reliable system, they need revenue streams and investor bonds and equity that will allow continued investment in that system and to plan for the future of that system. The obituary of natural gas in a modern economy is premature. There were certainly many items within this voluminous decision to point to with disappointment. For instance, I agree with the OCC that the proposed gas environmental projects should have been accepted to understand better the nature of leaks on the system. Those investments will likely be postponed for more prosaic and required operations. In my humble opinion and the experience of 2 out of 3 previous rate cases, I do not believe the decision before us satisfies the needs of the companies nor ultimately the needs of the customers. The companies will continue to have to prioritize spending on day-to-day operations and maintenance and will become reactive to events rather than system planning and other efforts on important work for this energy evolution in which we find ourselves. Knowing we cannot accept evidence not in the record, like ratings agencies' subsequent actions, it is something one must be aware in coming to final determinations. I mentioned during remarks in the recent Aquarian decision that multi-jurisdictional companies would invest less in Connecticut and more elsewhere, and that prediction has come to pass. The message has gone out loud and clear that there are better regulatory jurisdictions to invest, and I feel that this decision will continue that trend, and that is not and cannot be in the public interest. While I appreciate the efforts of my colleagues and Purist staff and all the other stakeholders in this proceeding to add some amount of revenue into the decision, I feel that the various reductions will not be sufficient to properly operate the local gas distribution system and provide an opportunity for the companies to earn near their authorized ROEs as established, or to attract needed capital from investors in this decision at a reasonable rate. And therefore, I decline to endorse the decision before us. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Karen. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chairman, colleagues. I know that our Purist staff, and in fact, all the dock participants put an extraordinary amount of time and effort into this year-long application and docket, and I thank them for that. I would say that I was disappointed with the original proposed final decision. It could be charitably described as severe. However, due to various adjustments that have been incorporated, I do plan on supporting today's final decision. After what was felt to be very productive oral hearing and careful attention that was made to the written exceptions, I now find that the final decision before us is satisfactory. It provides for suggested adjustments for the companies, not at least of which is a restoration of the cybersecurity items, for example. I know it's not everything that companies were looking for, but I believe it does provide adequate revenue to run the local gas distribution system safely and reliably in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I plan on supporting today's decision. I want to thank all of the docket participants for their collaboration in reaching the final result. And I want to particularly thank my staff. And with that, Mr. Bumpin, please call the vote.
Commissioner Karen?
No.
Vice Chairman Petkowski?
Yes.
Chairman Gillette?
Yes. And with that, the decisions have been adopted. That brings us to the end of today's special meeting, and we are adjourned.